Hey everybody. This is gonna hopefully be a quick video. It's been a crazy week. My oldest child is an adult, turned 18, which is momentous. I am dragging them along with me to Gen Con next week. I'm in the middle of a giant bit of planning and everything. And then shortly thereafter, I'll be sending them off to college so they can become whatever it is that they're going to become. Also, this week, I found out that two of the people that were a huge part of my childhood and my teenage years and my 20s are no longer with us, starting with Ozzy Osbourne and then following up with Hulk Hogan, who I found out today. Um, it's going to be weird. Whenever I'm going to play a Black Sabbath album, I'm going to remember that he died on the same day of like the birthday of my child. It's kind of a weird thing to think about. I immediately thought of that juxtaposition when it happened. And I could talk really glowingly about Black Sabbath. I've talked a little bit about the fact that um, I'm a huge Black Sabbath fan. I really, really enjoy that band. I remember when somebody, I forget who, played the album Master of Reality for me. That was my first album that I heard, and it was in my teenage years. And I remember thinking that album was just absolutely amazing. I mean, just every track from top to bottom. And it's like 37 minutes of just perfection. I still listen to that constantly, and you can be damn sure I listened to it on Tuesday when I heard about Ozzy Osbourne's passing. And I was a fan of him after the fact. I went to an Oz Fest. I don't remember what year it was. And so I'm glad I got to see him in concert. But I mean, I wasn't so much. I was always just really a Black Sabbath fan. That was what I was a fan of. He obviously extended his career and did his whole thing. But I I really felt um the gut punch when I heard about that. He seemed ageless. He seemed like he'd just be around forever. A friend of mine said the only two immortals left are Willie Nelson and Keith Richards, and I feel like that's kind of very true, right? Um, and then that felt, as far as like when you get older, the people, the heroes you had, um, you don't expect them to live forever, and so when they start falling off the face of the earth, so to speak, it's one of those like, oh, and then you say the kind of things, well, they had a good run, or you kind of just remember certain moments. Like I'll remember that Ozfest, and to be fair, I mean, I don't remember being super wowed by seeing Ozzy in concert. It was the other bands that were there that I was more excited to see. But regardless, but you can be sure that when they decided to bust out Children of the Grave, I popped like crazy for it. But anyway, I didn't do a video when I heard about Ozzy just because I didn't think about it. I didn't think much. And then when I heard about Hulk Hogan, um, it for whatever reason, even though it's more complicated, my fandom of him. This one is seemingly not it's just affecting me more deeply, and not like, ooh, I'm sad, but just like it's causing me to like think of these things. Um, I as a kid, like a lot of people, huge fan of Hulk Hogan. Like just like take your vitamins, say your prayers, the whole nine yards. And then I can remember as I got into my teenage years how boring he was, right? And just because he was doing all those crummy movies. I mean, strangely, like rewatched Rocky 3 yesterday, and I was like seeing that young Hulk Hogan playing Thunder Lips in there, and then recanting recounting the fact that like he actually, I think, got fired from the WWF because he wanted to go do that movie, and then they basically had to rehire him because he was such a draw. Could be misremembering that, but stuff like that. And then I remember in my teenage years like getting bored of Hogan just because he was everywhere and he was just larger than life. He was larger than wrestling. And like I said, he was on all those crummy movies and doing crummy things, like Suburban Commando and the other stuff that he did. And then I remember watching WCW and WWF, and I don't know if it changed WWE at that time, but I remember in the 90s, like I'd gotten out of watching wrestling and somebody said, "Hey, you should really start watching wrestling again." It's like there's some crazy stuff going on. And that was like 94, 95. And I can remember um that's when like on cable I kept on seeing ads for WCW. I can still remember seeing the ads of like seeing Surfer Sting, like pumping himself up and whatever. But I remember I started watching WCW and I just kind of got into it. I kind of slowly got into it. And then the NWO thing happened and Hogan turned bad guy. And I did a video about that a while ago and I compared Hogan going heel with John Cena going heel. And like about seven of you watched it. You can find that on my channel and rewatch it if you want. But I remember all of a sudden Hogan was cool again. And it looked like he was having fun. I remember just being so excited about the NWO and just loving everything about it. And that was that whole like fun heel aspect. And then he got boring again. And then WCW folded and it didn't seem like there was anything left for him to do. And then the last big hurrah really for me was when he faced The Rock. And I think it was WrestleMania, oh God, 18, 19. And he had like the icon versus icon match. And I can remember sitting in my buddy's apartment watching that pay-per-view and us just losing our minds at that match, just the emotions of it. And it's just and I've rewatched that match so many times, and it's just a great match. And I remember, but that was like the last time I really, really cheered hard for Hulk Hogan. It's just it's weird, right? And then he just kind of lingered, and he just kind of hung out, and he hung on, and then you found out what a really shitty human being he was. Um, And I know I've told this story before, but I met him. I met him once in like the 90s when he had just turned heel and he was in the NWO and he was funny. I remember I got to talk to him for like 15, 20 minutes. He was funny. He told stories. He was genuine. He was kind. Um, which just goes to show, I mean, like people can be that way, but also they can just hide their internal craptitude and keep it hidden from you. Um, yeah, I mean, somewhere in my mother's house, there's some pictures of me standing with Hulk Hogan, and maybe I'll find them one day, and I'll go, oh yeah, look how young I was, look how young he was. Um, the thing is this is that our ability to separate art from the artist, I've always said this, is directly related to how much we love that art they create. Um, I know some people that uh, who are very progressive, um, part of the LGBTQ uh, group. I probably using the wrong terminology here. I apologize for that. But they have like Harry Potter tattoos that they got before they realized just how horrible J.K. Rowling was. And I always think, God, that just must suck, right? And in a way, like my fanboy aspect of Hogan, meeting him and having that like 20-minute conversation with him. Um, and then you find out that he's just this horrible person. Now, I don't have a Hulk Hogan tattoo or anything, but you think about that and you think, oh, how did I cheer this guy? Um, it gets to a point where I realized in my head that immediately after I heard about Ozzy passing, I immediately queued up the Master of Reality album and watched and listened to it immediately. When I heard Hulk Hogan died, I had no desire to go back and watch any of his matches, not even his one against The Rock at WrestleMania. And I guess maybe that's just the difference between the two things for me. Um, I can't defend any of the crappy, shitty things that he did. Um, but he did make a younger version of me really, really happy. So I guess he gave me that. But as a close friend told me just earlier today when I said that, I was like, I don't know how to feel about this. He made a really, really younger version of me happy, very happy. And he said, well, that version of Hulk Hogan that made you happy, he's been dead a long time before today. And I think that puts it best. Anyway, that's that.